Today I'm interviewing Trevor Whittington. Trevor comes from a farming background. He's been in agri-politics. He's done 2 master's degree and attempted to do a 3rd one. And he's into agri-politics. He's spent time with Aborigines. We talk about land ownership issues and challenges, and communism we touch on. We talk about Iran. We talk about global stuff, how agriculture's changing in Western Australia, the demographics of it. We talk about nuclear power even, and energy, and we just go everywhere with Trevor. He's just an incredible person to socialise with, and I do enjoy socialising with him. Well, now you get to enjoy Trevor and I socialising without a beer, but with a glass of water on a whole range of topics, agriculture included, in the mix of geopolitical stuff. So enjoy. Trevor Whittington. Trevor Whittington, welcome.
Oh, thanks, Bill. It's good to, I'm usually on the other end of a mobile phone or computer listening to you. Now I'm in the hot seat.
Well, I enjoy reading what you write in the back of the Farm Weekly every week. You've got some very colourful stuff happening there, and I'm glad you've joined us. And you've got an interesting family career. I was talking to Mark Seymour then, actually, about your uncle.
Harry Whittington.
Yeah, the Whittington Banks.
Yeah. Well, yeah, there's some interesting stories. I like to point out carefully that he's all the Whittingtons are WA related. We all came out in 1830, so we're slow breeders.
The WA?
Yeah.
So you're one of the first families
we're shy breeders. In fact, there's a really interesting network. If you look at the original pre-gold rush families that went out and followed the sort of Avon up, and they're all linked, and there's some actually links back into royalty. So, we're
better be respected.
Well, mind you, I don't think royalty is respected much these days. No. But anyway, the story of the Whittington Becks and Harry, it's my grandfather's cousin, something or other. We always deeply suspicious of the science. We didn't think there was much science, but we thought that he must have had a great deal going with Caterpillar spare parts, because they went through an awful lot of tracks and parts building them, and then they went through an awful lot of tracks and parts pushing them all out, and so someone made some money.
Well, the government had subsidies for people to put contours in to stop water erosion as well back in the 70s, so it sort of went hand in hand.
I dragged an old plough out the other day, and we cracked it up, and I showed the boys up the farm, because they haven't grown up on the farm. They've sort of just come back into it in the last few years, and how a plough actually worked, and they were just stunned. And I said, "We'll show you. We'll go up and back a few times. So we'll build a bank." And they go, "Well, why do you want to build a bank in the middle of the paddock?" I said, "Well, stop it eroding." And they go, "Well, why would it erode?" I said, "You need to talk to them. No-till build."
Because the soil gets compacted with the sheep, and not enough residue, and it's all eaten.
And we just pounded it to death.
And then cemented concrete when it got wet, and clay came to the surface and sealed it, and the water ran off.
I was just pulling up one of your articles on deep ripping duplex soils from the 1980s, because as you know, where I am at Corrigan, I've got duplex soils, and I know I've got compaction, and I don't want to get down to that sodic stuff underneath. And I go, just how much can I tickle this stuff up? Yeah. And if it's sandy, if you're up to 30 centimetres, you'll get, 250 kilos from that trials you did in that paper in the 80s or whenever.
Yeah, 85, 86, yeah.
But there's very little ripping happening out in that vast amount of that sort of duplex Yorkshire country.
Yeah, and the ripping really is, for the yellow soils or the loamy soils, Wongan Hills, Eridu Sandplain, Rod Birch's farm at Karoo, It makes a lot of sense. In the less clay in the soil, the responses weren't as big. Although I was talking to someone yesterday, and he was saying that they're revisiting it a bit, and maybe it's slightly changed from old work, because maybe there's more organic matter at the surface, and maybe a little bit of, you and I know that no till's a foundation, but when you've got problems, you've got to fix them, and tillage is a useful tool that we'd never say no to. You never say never, do you?
No, and things change, but that compaction is a real issue. And, we know how we can deal with the acidity, and we know what we can do with gypsum and sodic soils and stuff, but just, somehow we've got to crack through that, as we move to tram lines and all the rest of it.
Yeah.
But anyway, we're getting into interesting agronomy. Way out of my league. My world, as you know, is agri-politics.
Yeah, and that's, of course, where we want to go. But I'm really honoured that you took us down that path straight away. But so tell us a little bit more about your family. So your family was a long time, one of the first lot of farmers?
Oh, yeah, all the way through. So followed the river out. It was Beverley, Brookton.
The red soils were fertile.
That's
the valley
right. Find those salmon gums.
Yeah.
And then after my grandfather went to the First World War and he came back, fortunately alive, that's why I'm here. Yeah. And then out to the other side of Corrigan. And it was a bit dry. Yeah. And so during the Second World War, they bought the Corrigan block, Blowering block, and stayed there. And then my father came home from Muresk. A lot of people went to Muresk, and then expanded that exercise. And 4 kids came along, and off to boarding school. Usual routine. Yeah. And then I went to uni.
What did you study?
I started off in economics, failed the maths, so I swapped to arts degree. Okay. I found my true calling, history and politics. Because
and philosophy.
Well, I didn't do any philosophy. I probably should have.
Yeah, you were a philosopher.
Oh well, I don't know, but I liked history, and because you always knew the answer. Yeah, just look backwards. Yeah, and I liked politics because there was no right and wrong answer, so you can never fail.
You turn a wrong answer into a right answer with politics.
That's right. So I continued. I did an honours in politics, and then I ended up at Sydney Uni doing a Masters in Ag Excellence.
Oh, yeah.
Slow learner, because yet again, I did the whole thing. Yeah. And the last unit was econometrics, which I failed. Yeah. So I didn't finish my master's degree. And okay. So for my sins, I had to repent, and I ended up working on the cotton fields at Moree at $6.90 an hour or something back a long time ago.
And you mid-20s?
Early 20s, yeah. And then I went home to farm for a year, and then spent a couple of years travelling overland around the world. Managed to work my way through.
You went through Africa too?
I went through Africa, all the way across China. Basically, I went through 64 countries in 2 years, top of North America to the bottom of South America. But before that, I'd spent a year as an exchange student in Brazil, so I'd already had the travel bug. I spent a lot of time in India and Bangladesh and Iran and you name it.
Iran as well?
Yeah, yeah.
Iran before the revolution?
No, it was after the revolution, but it was quite a safe place to travel.
Yeah.
Syria?
Well,
before they all started shooting each other.
Yeah.
So I did a lot of travel.
Mm. Well, those people, they're lovely people, so just the politics that's ruling it is a bit different.
Yeah. It's but there's been a lot of history there. Yeah. Let's not go there because
that's a 4,000 years.
That's right.
4,500. We don't have time for that.
But just to finish the story, I actually did end up going back and did a bit more study. So my kids just can't believe it. I kept going back. So I ended up doing a master's in international relations when I was working for the Minister for Agriculture, looking at how do you improve sustainable fishing systems. And
that was Ken Baston?
And I did 2 masters. I did another master's in international law. So I did one on the live export and one on fishing. One was working with the Minister for Fisheries, and it was Norman Moore at the time, and then with Ken.
So that's why you're quite vocal about the fishery stuff.
That's right. I've been commenting. Well, I've sat through literally hundreds of briefings by the Fisheries Research Division, and we got world-class fisheries management. We got...
I caught up with Greg Post at Christmas party.
Yeah. He was deputy head of fisheries.
And he was telling me the good stuff he did with Norman Moore and how the prawn, the lobsters...
Rock lobster.
And that was
put that to quota.
That was a bit of pain.
Huge amount of pain.
But it really was successful.
Reality is we know how many fish are out there. We can count them. It's a desert out in the ocean, like it's a desert inland. We got very strange flora and fauna on the terrestrial. We got very strange flora and fauna out in the ocean. Wow. Slow growing. Yeah. And we can count fish stocks and see the numbers. And we've got a growing population of hunters and killers. Yeah. We're fluoro 1 week out of 2, and then they get on their boat in the second week and go out and chase jewfish. And they're really good at finding them.
Yeah, and they've got all the tools to find them.
That's right, all the electronics. And eventually you have to just keep shrinking. Yeah. And here's my little bit of politics on fisheries. Yeah. The Minister for Fisheries has selected the wealthy boat owners, the hunters and killers, about 2,000 of them, and they've got most of the allocation while the people like you and me who don't go
little
fishing,
tinny.
yeah, that's right, don't go fishing out on the deep bank. We
penalised.
We get our fish from the commercial guys, and there's only a handful of them left. There'll be even less now. And so, as I keep pointing out in my articles, we are being left to eat bassa, while the good and the wealthy, with the time and the money, still get to eat jewfish. So that's my political comments.
Okay,
So that's
interesting.
my weekly articles, as you know,
Yeah.
and the Farm Weekly, and whoever else will print them.
Yeah, good on you. All right, so now so go backwards now. Your dad, I got to meet your dad for the first time. I was in Canada in 1996, living there for a
Barry
year.
Whittington, yeah.
Yeah, and Barry rang me up and said, "Bill, can I come and see a bit of the prairies with you?" And I said, "Yeah, sure. I know about your dad for great reputation. He's well respected." And he and I were looking. We saw some northern lights in Canada when we were travelling at night time one time, and that was delightful. And the first time I'd ever seen them. And then I said goodbye to him, and then sadly a few days later,
He passed
Mum
away.
rings me up and says Barry passed away in the Rocky Mountains.
it was
or
sad.
something.
Yeah, so that was a long time ago.
But he did a great contribution also to agriculture. Was he involved in the
It was early involvement in the Continental Group.
Yep.
And he was deeply interested in soils, and he just liked change. He liked science. He liked pushing the boundaries.
father like son a bit?
No, well, maybe. And so that was sort of the end of the wind down of the family farm.
Then it got leased out.
They got leased out for a long time, nearly over 20 years.
And you've come back and had a bit
Well,
of a
I've got a couple of sons, and one's just finished ag science at UWA, and the other one's doing engineering at UWA. And we'd go up to the farm on the odd weekend, and the older boy Thomas really liked the challenge. And then COVID came, and he worked out he could do most of his degree, to my horror, from the farm, and didn't get to come back for 2 days a week to his labs and whatever. So he sort of missed a whole cohort of kids and missed the whole university experience you and I had. Yeah. But the end results, he got the country life experience. And so he worked for the neighbour, and then we share farmed, and then he said, well, let's have a go.
Yeah.
So
here we are.
The super disappeared into what would have been magnificent machinery back in my father's era, but it was an old machinery now. Yeah. And I think we've just done our third crop. So it's
good on you, getting your fingernails dirty with a young boy by your side. Good on you.
I seem to be the one lying under the machinery with the dripping oil and the oats down my back, and he's yelling instructions from his chat GPT and his phone and the computer setup. And I look in wonder through the window of all the computer screens in the header cab or the seating rigs. And it's good on him. I don't know how far we'll go with it. It's it's
a journey.
Well, it's a journey. It's a great experience for him. Yeah. It's like doing a master's degree. A real world master's. Yeah. Then he's farm's too small to be a sustainable exercise, but he's leveraging it up. He's been to China a few times. He's importing machinery and designing and building chaser bins, and there's lots of pathways. You don't just have to be a farmer. You've been in and out of farming. You've had a couple of shots at it, well, 3 when you grew up, but and that's part of the narrative I like to say to the world at large is agriculture's got many pathways to be involved in. And never say no to go back to farming. Might even see you go back to running farming one day.
Yeah, who knows? Who knows? At my young age. But let's go back to you now, because I remember having a chat with you in a car park sometime a few years back, and you told me you went up to the Fitzroy as well. How long did you do that for, and what did you do?
Well, I did 16 years as a political hack, because when you leave university with an arts degree and you're interested in politics, all roads lead to working for politicians. So I managed to do all the court government, all the Barnett government as a political staffer, chief of staff or policy officer.
That was Richard Court?
Richard Court. So I worked in the Premier's office for a while.
Your title then was?
It was
Research officer?
Senior policy officer, and then a chief of staff. So,
right,
and
good.
so
for the Premier?
No, I was with Ken Baston and Norman Moore, Mark Lewis, during the Barnett years.
Yeah.
So Yeah, in between those, we had a horticultural block, Angela, wife, and I, down south. So got a dose of growing a stone fruit and selling to the Chinese. Right, we're the biggest stone fruit farm in the state at one stage. Got out of that, did my second burst of politics, and finished. They got tossed out 2017. And then I looked at my long and extensive CV and all my letters, which are meaningless after it, and I worked out just how employable someone is who's got blue all through the CV. And so I thought, well, I could go and not likely to go and work for the red team. I think they like me and I don't like them. The green team and me are certainly not going to get along too well. The National Party, I'd had a few runs in with them, so the dark green.
Yeah.
And the Teals hadn't cranked up yet, but I was certainly not going to be great friends with them. So I got a job running an Indigenous corporation up in Fitzroy Crossing, Bunnamadara mob. They had 3 stations. And
so that was more recently.
No, that was straight after. That was 2018. So I did that. So I got a real dose of politics, which was Indigenous corporation, and working for them, juggling 30 houses, 1.3 million acres, and sorting out leases and native title and everything that goes with what has realistically been a failed exercise of attempting to transition leasehold land across to Indigenous control with no right to sell it. So
no right to make it profitable.
Well,
no incentive, no motivation.
There's 350 operating pastoral stations in the state. It was originally about 550, but some have been resumed, some have been combined. It's 41 or 44 owned by Aboriginal corporations, and there's less than half a dozen still run. And it's simple. My simple explanation for it is if I gave you and your 500 relatives a 1 million acre pastoral property, just how effective do you think?
How motivated would I be?
Well, good. There's a lot of hands going into the till, and there's not a lot of, it's very difficult to control that capital and to invest, because you basically got to pour the whole lot back in all the time.
Which is agriculture.
It's agriculture, as family farms generate very small real cash returns. Yeah. And there's
volatility in there. And if stuff slips out.
It was designed to fail. It has failed. And
do you think it was designed to fail?
Oh, I think that it was. Anyone could see that if the whole movement in the 80s and 90s to buy pastoral properties and return them to Aboriginal control, and all you're doing is returning a lease because it's still Crown land. They didn't freehold it. And then putting a caveat over it that it can never be sold, which has got racist undertones to it. Yeah, because you don't trust people, and you don't, and so and then not giving them the capital to run it, the expertise. And right across Australia,
they can't go to the bank and say, "Look, I've got an asset worth $5 million here. I need $1 million for."
I think ANZ smoked at least $10 million on the property that I was overseeing. But by the time I got there was nothing left. The cattle had all gone, been sold. So nothing was left.
So this is probably new to everybody, almost everybody.
Well, it's not new if you want to open your eyes and go and look.
Exactly, but most people don't go and look. They just hear the blah 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 and the arguments back and forth, and issues are very challenging. Rah, rah, rah. But I mean, effectively, it's almost communistic. Would you say?
Well, it is, and idealistic. And the Western suburbs world likes to think they are far from the real world.
They're very much right. They're very much business. They've made their wealth in the Western suburbs.
Oh, they're probably alleviating some of their guilt by handballing it somewhere else.
But that's an interesting idea.
Well, you've worked in Africa. You've seen how aid money just evaporates and disappears. If you don't have the rule of law, property rights.
I was with a pastor in Mozambique 3 months ago. I just dropped into a local church and I said, "What do you think of US aid disappearing?" And he said it was the worst thing we could have ever had. It was money going to all the wrong causes and didn't build anything up. It just was being stolen and left, right and centre. So, hi, this is Bill Crabtree from Four Farmers. Glad you're listening. Hope you're enjoying it. Four Farmers is a family-owned business based here in Western Australia. These podcasts are about interviewing people that have good knowledge, experience, influence, and innovative ideas into agriculture, particularly based for Western Australia, but there are some global topics as well. For Farmers is more than just a podcast. We sell a range of agricultural products, particularly pesticides, but some trace elements as well, and aquifer. All right, so let's now jump into the podcast and learn more about agriculture. Some, interesting.
I remember travelling through Ethiopia, one of the great countries to visit, shall I say it? If you're a man of faith and interest in Christianity, even more reason to go. But putting that aside, I'm from the era of Bob Geldof. Remember Live Aid, in 1985?
Yeah.
And just shovel more money to Ethiopia. They were having a horrendous drought at the time, but it was really a war. And the US opened the floodgates of subsidised grain, which wiped out the small farmers. That was, in the areas that didn't have drought, just destroyed their economy. So if you want to destroy, linking our conversation back to economics and geopolitics, aid destroys economy. Subsidies and the lack of the rule of law. So
lack of land ownership.
Well, that's right.
Ownership of the land in someone's name, skin in the game, as Rod Birchall always used to like to say. Bill, I'll listen to you a bit more now. You got skin in the game.
That's true. Well, look at how much of grain production increased globally. One of my great interests, and I touch on this fairly regularly in my articles in the Farm Weekly, is just how good we are at increasing production. So that anyone thinks that $330 a tonne for wheat and it's just got to go back to 400 and head to 500, they're kidding themselves. They see how much grain places like can produce as those small farms, 300 million farmers, follow the rest of us out the door and they aggregate up. How much the global population, as it moves into shrinking in the Western world and East Asia, all the major macro signals are that we're in for a long, rough ride going ahead as global grain production keeps cranking up, supply chains improve, countries like Ukraine, the breadbasket of Europe, and Russia stop shooting at each other, and the world stops, the rich parts of the world stops breeding and eating meat. We could be in for a long time of depressed prices.
Well, there's been a lot of vegan happening food, but my sister-in-law, she just had 16 years of that, or something like that, and she's just gone totally the other way now. Now she feels a lot healthier, but it's this is a challenging thing of life. We're all a bit prone to it. I think we can go down this path that way or this path this way, but really, veggies and meat is probably just sensible.
I pointed out I've got a daughter who's, got a good dose of Western suburbs from her time at St Hilda's and getting another dose at Notre Dame doing arts law. So she's the bleeding heart of the family, and we probably do need a bit of that social conscience because between the rest of us we don't have too much. We're a bit more pragmatic. She went down with her cohort of friends. They all do the vegan thing.
Yeah, because you don't want to kill animals.
No, of course not.
Animals are sacred.
But when no one's looking, she does like a really good steak. Medium rare.
It's like a Hindu friend, when no one's looking. She said, Bill, have these sausages got any meat in?
No, of course not.
Well, they taste good.
Well, I point out to having been involved in horticulture and been worked up north, and how magnificent and unique is Western Australia.
Oh, yeah.
We can grow from the subtropics in the Kimberley.
And nothing's happening already.
No, huge missed opportunities, and we should have built a few more dams.
Yes.
We'll go back there. To the cool temperate down in Pemberton and Albany.
Yeah.
Even more unique, you can grow a subtropical species like avocados on the Carry limes down there. The berries are...
Donnybrook.
And
cherries.
Look at you drive through the Donnybrook, Manjimup region, you see all these old houses that were old sheds that were apple pack houses. We had the amount of water that's there, freehold land, lots of 100-acre blocks, too many hobby farms been returned to bracken, or worse, the government's sort of buying them back up and planting trees. Don't start me on that. But we have not been able to capture. We could grow vast amounts more food, a huge range of food, if the government just let us get on with it.
Yeah. So if we go back to Fitzroy just for a second, so it's tricky because we don't want to be too politically brutal, but we also want to be honest, I think, because we want to be helpful. And, from my Christian compassion side, I'm good friends with Rodney Rivers. Rodney's like a lay pastor, effectively, and I've gone up there with him, and we drop in at all of these Christian places where they're off the alcohol and they're trying to do right things, but the system doesn't provide the incentive. And the Aboriginal culture is different as well. It's sort of, like, come to my house and you can eat all my food, and then when you're out of food, we'll go to another house. And we had Aborigines come and stay with us at Morrowa, and they brought a dozen of them, and within 2 days the food was all gone. And they said, "Well, where's your next lot of food?" And I said, "Well," my wife and I looked at each other and said, "Well, we don't have any more."
You look at it, you got 60,000 years of culture. That
arguable. It's 5,000 when I went to school.
Well, you said you've grown. And I'm going, how far back do you really want to go? What's it matter? But
exactly.
let's go. It was certainly, it doesn't matter. So, yeah. And it is a nomadic lifestyle. Bruce Pascoe, Dark Emu might try and convince us all that they were busily farming, but let's be brutally honest.
Yeah.
They just didn't have the livestock or the grains to do that, and they didn't go down that path. But very, very effective at surviving in a really hostile environment.
Yeah.
So if you and I, forebears washed up on the cliffs of Zoetdorf or something.
Well, some Dutch bloke did.
That's right.
And he survived because he learnt from the Aborigines.
That's right. Some genetics running around.
Yeah. Blonde-haired, blue eyes.
That's right. You couldn't pick a better people in the world to help you survive.
Yep.
In our day and age, it's a different world.
So how do they come on into that? I mean, Jacinta Price, she's only a generation.
Well, so basically, we just need a bit more frank political discussion,
And it has to come from probably someone like Jacinta and Mundine.
Yeah, fortunately, people like me, as much as I might have opinions, and yourself,
we're a bit dangerous.
Yeah, well, we're not going to move the dial, but it's harder to shout her down as she is, and Noel Pearson and others, they are shaking the tree, but to leave what I saw in these outstations, there's 260 outstations across Western Australia. You go to the country towns that we grew up, there was shops and there was jobs and there was opportunities and there was freehold land, and there is none of that. There is no hope, no future when you don't have freehold land.
Yeah.
You can't borrow money to build. There's no jobs, there's no service station, there's no tyre shop, no mechanic shop. There's no fundamental industry. There's no sheep or grain out in the Simpson Desert. And it's just a disaster. And as I found talking to the mob I was working with, some really smart guys, great guys, the really smart ones sent all their kids to school in Melbourne and told them not to come back, or Perth. And I said, well, why are you guys staying there? And they'd point to the government jet circling overhead about to land at the Fitzroy Airport. And he says, well, they've come to see me to distribute largesse, and it's a hell of a lot easier than what you're doing, which is having to work for someone else. So they were milking the system, and they were unashamedly making sure that a fair share of the cut went to a select number of pockets, and the rest of us, the government departments, the Bleeding Hearts, the Teals, the state and federal government politicians just closed their eyes to what you and I and everyone who grew up in a small country town would not accept. An environment that was dangerous, unsafe, and offered no future. And we perpetuate that. So I got my dose of that, and I came away pretty disheartened, to be honest.
Yeah, well, I did too, and Rodney is too. Rodney's asking me, the Aboriginal guy, said, Bill, because I'm friends with Barry Court, and Charlie Court wanted to open all that up. And Barry actually said to me, I caught up with him recently at an event, he said, Bill, I've still got some fire in my belly, Margaret Court's husband, I'd really like to do something for the Fitzroy. And I said, well, I'll get Trevor with me and Rodney Rivers and, maybe a few politicians that are active at the moment and just see what's possible. But it's hard, isn't it?
Look, there's actually some really simple things they could do linked to agriculture. First, you could freehold all those pastoral properties, including the Indigenous.
That would require an act of Parliament?
Oh, of course, but, why does the Crown have to own it?
Why does it have to steal the land off the Aborigines?
Well, the properties, well, the 1.3 million acres that I was overseeing, 3 pastoral properties, why can't they be freehold? And, you could sub them up, put them in smaller plots, allow people to sell their share. If they don't want to retain a share, 2 women are working with me in the office. They both wanted to get out of town. They both had kids, and they were sharing a house with too many people. But they needed $15,000, which is about the value of their share of the estate and assets. That would have given them enough to put a bond down at Broome or Kununurra. They didn't want to go too far.
Yeah,
and they'd be away. But no, they can't take their share of the estate as your family and my family
can.
Well, when they left England or Ireland or wherever they came from, there was the 3 acres or 5 acres or whatever they were on. At some stage, one son got the land, and number 2 son went to the church, and number 3 son the military, number 4 son
engineer
was given, did a trade or was given £5 and like Dick Whittington and the cat and sent to the colonies.
Yeah,
but he's got a share to start again.
Mm.
We're not giving anyone a share, and we are saying you have to stay there. That Fitzroy, the Greens are saying, no more dams on you can't dam the Fitzroy. Huge, as a soils man, you've seen those black soils up, the huge opportunity for intensive agriculture.
Be very similar to what just happened in Mozambique. In January, they had about 700 mils of rain. Zimbabwe, Botswana, and it all flooded through Mozambique. Oh, that's enough water for 10 years of irrigation during the dry season. It's 22, min's 15 and the max is 25. You grow wheat on that. Right. In the winter, but it's dry in the winter. Yeah, right. So and they've got all this land just sitting there dead idle, and it's very similar to the Fitzroy. And this idea that dams are unnatural and dangerous, but I mean, goodness me.
Well,
the potential.
And what cotton has done in New South Wales and Queensland when the Americans came over in the 50s, and they couldn't believe it. We weren't growing cotton. So, it's taken us a long time to work out what we can grow up in the Ord, but cotton looks like an absolute cracker.
Yep.
And there's huge areas, and it's a big money spinner, and that throws off all the service industry as we started the conversation.
And cotton's a material that is needed.
That's right, and
it's natural, so it should be a winner.
And what else can we grow with genetic technology?
Yes,
another topic we should touch on.
Because
you and I had our ups and downs as we both.
No, let's just spit it out. We had to have a clash, but we'll get there.
Yeah. So, but look, GM in agriculture, where can we go with that tweaking up?
Yeah.
You do need to come up with a frost-resistant a wheat, please.
I'm working on it.
I'm in Frost Central out there. My boys haven't seen a good frost, but where can we go with GM? Mm-hmm. And why did it take us so long? And what could we do up in the north with GM crops?
Well, to spin them back to the cotton again, they had to give up in the 60s or 70s, was it?
72, or was it? No, rice got all eaten by the ducks, wasn't it? The ducks came in.
Yeah. And cotton got eaten by the grubs.
By the grubs,
and the BT sorted that out. And they used to spray 20 times, and what a waste. And with this technology, you might only have to spray once.
It took a long time to work out what was going to work up there. I remember they first planted melons. No one thought about the fact that
to get them down to Perth.
Yeah, well, the next 400 kilometres was a corrugated road. So by the time the melons got to
much,
it wasn't. But farmers are incredibly innovative and change, and they'll find a way if there's a way. You do need the science behind it.
Yeah,
it's been a couple of days of the GRDC updates.
Yeah,
And that science ecosystem that you came out of, that my son has come through, is incredibly important.
And it's strong in WA.
It is.
Yeah, very strong.
Even stronger if we had a bit more of the money stayed here. The old ag department where you worked for a number of years hadn't been decimated, cut to the bone.
Yeah.
And if you look at forward estimates, it's going to get cut again. Good. But GM, let's talk about GM.
Yeah. So I wrote the policy document with the minister. Gary Snook, was he a minister? No, Gary was a member for Moore. And anyway, he had an empathy for the technology. I was having arguments in the paper with.
So what year was this, roughly?
This is 96. It got adopted in Canada the year that I was there.
Right.
And I came back and wrote an article saying, "Oh, gee, this is interesting technology. Not sure about it, but I think from a science point of view, I'm comfortable with it." And then I wrote a SWOT analysis article and basically talked about the weaknesses. And of course, people get scared easily, especially when groups get hold of it that have got an interest in being an alternative, organic like agriculture or whatever. So I then made a rod for my own back. But so then I felt like I had to correct it, and I did it as a private consultant most of the time. A third of my time for about 10 years was spent arguing for GM without being paid for anyone.
That's all right, because I can remember you coming through the door when the Barnett government came in 2007. Ken was we got the portfolio. I got the portfolio.
Redmond.
Terry had it.
Yeah.
He made some initial changes, but he wouldn't go the whole hog to wind it back. So he took it so far, some restrictions. So
there was a moratorium against GM crops all over the state.
Yeah.
Yeah, and so that started and was put in 2003, so I felt like I had to fight that.
That was Kim Chance put that in.
Yes.
And then Terry made some changes.
Kim's funny, he says, "I'm not sure GM crops are safe."
That's right.
We know what the protein is. We know what it is. And the amino acids. We know what it is, and it's not dangerous. So, go on.
It was the second term of the Barnett government, which is 2013. Ken Baston came in, and I was his chief of staff. And I reckon you were one of the first people that came through the door.
Yeah.
And I banged on about GM.
Yeah.
And I said, I was absolutely fully supportive up for it.
Yeah.
Away we went. The problem is that the political process didn't quite move as fast as you liked. He used to ring up and yell at me occasionally.
Yeah,
and I'd say, Bill, just it's hard. It can't be that hard.
Yeah.
Just change the legislation.
Well, we could see the writing on the wall. Labour were going to get into the next election. The door was closing. We weren't sure. We were all talking away from you. John Snook and a few others. We've saying, is this going to happen? How are we going to?
So do you want the real story?
I beat my friend up. It's
The story behind the story. Our biggest roadblock was the Premier. So Colin Barnett, for all his good things he did, he had plenty of faults too. He had his little 100 acres, so he dabbled up at 2J with his few sheep and all the rest of it. And he was the nervous Nelly.
Well, he was in the western suburbs.
Oh, of course.
And that's where the resistance was.
He was nervous. He should have done a lot more when we had control of both houses. We could have changed environmental laws, a whole range of stuff. But put that aside. So we had
a good stadium though, and Elizabeth Keys.
That's
and
true.
The freeways were improved, and the hospital. He did some good stuff.
Yeah, but it's always easy to spend money when the money was pouring in.
Yeah.
But when you got both houses of Parliament, you make some big changes. We missed the boat on that. But we had unlimited money because we had the chemical companies prepared to write large checks. But the harder we pushed it, the more he pushed back. So we dial it down and just wait for the right person to get into his ear. And eventually we got him across the line. But if you might call local government reform, there's a big push to amalgamate councils, and that every time it went up to cabinet, it got knocked on the head because Premier Barnett did not like it. Yeah. So unfortunately, premiers, prime ministers, it's not a democratic system at the top. They rule the roost. They can stop anything going through cabinet. They interpret what comes out of cabinet. Like what Keating say, you change the premier, prime minister, you change the state, you change the country. And so all power resides in that office, much more so than most people would appreciate. Which is why, we
But he still has to get re-elected.
Yeah, well, sometimes they forget that, and too often they stay there too long.
Yeah.
We saw that with Howard. We saw that with Hawke. We saw that with Barnett, and the political parties blow themselves apart.
Yeah.
And then nothing happens if you're on the.
Yeah, when you're on a winning streak, you think you can go forever. Sometimes.
I'll tell you what, if you ever get the window to control both houses of Parliament, you take it and you run with it like mad, because
You're extreme right.
oh, absolutely. My political
Hard
opponents,
right.
Political opponents on the left would totally agree. Managing to cobble together, just sending the nation backwards at the moment. But look, the damage political parties can do if they and the biggest ones, if they drive their agenda too hard, and we saw that with live exports. It's easy to shut down an industry.
Yeah.
Very hard to start a new one. They talk about it.
Yeah.
But it's almost impossible to crank something up. And but when governments have got the ability to make fundamental changes, circling back to the Indigenous and freeholding, which is one of the things I think, I can't understand why the whole state shouldn't be freehold, because
me too. Why is it? Why is this 99-year lease there?
Oh, it's actually 49 years. We went away from 99 to got 49 year, and some of it's even less. So who's going to invest in new fences or yards or anything when you got 20 years out from a lease being turned over? Yeah. So make it 999 years if you don't want to go freehold, but it's almost impossible now because of native title. Native title, you'd have to extinguish it.
Native title is not helping the natives.
It's a term you can't use anymore, but the Indigenous people, the native people of Australia, one would think
First Nations.
First Nations.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah. Which particular nation's that?
What does Jacinta like? That's the term I'd like to use.
Yeah, well, why isn't she in a leadership position?
Yeah, well,
that's a missed opportunity.
Yeah, well, she probably will be soon, I think. I listened to an interview with Carl Stefano last week, very interesting interview. And she said these welcome to country ceremonies, all us Aboriginals groan through them.
Have you noticed how that's died down?
We're still here at the crop updates.
But still it seems that madness of the whole woke era, it's dialed down a bit. Zoom meetings, doing a welcome to country, during COVID, it was just like, you'd lose half a day. It was
George Orwell's 1984. Crazy.
It is a crazy world. Well, but maybe we just got too wealthy too fast.
Yeah, well, they say good times make weak men, tough times make tough men. And we've had some good times for a long time, and people don't realise that because of that, we've got weak, and we've got things now that are happening that are going to come in and erode. And I think that's why Pauline Hanson's getting such a strong support.
You bring in, what have we brought in?
Nearly 1 million in 2 years, is it?
Yeah,
different cultures.
Well,
multiculturalism.
You go back to, what are we at, 27 million people. You go back to 2000, we had 8 million people less in Australia. Sydney and Melbourne punched through 6 million people each, and they would fit in the top 10 cities in the United States. They are big cities, and as I like to term it, how many of those people would know who Banjo Patterson is? How many would have listened to, Macca's on Sunday, the ABC radio, landline. They
culture.
They don't travel across the Blue Mountains, or they're not the the caravanners. They're not going to the caravan parks. We have basically given away our culture effectively in 20 years, and it's sped up in the last 10, for what outcome? Housing that our kids can't afford, $1 million to buy a house in Perth, an education system that's watered down its value. We can't find people to work in agriculture or to live inland. What a disaster. And the Liberals have failed to make the case. Labor,
Corey Bernardi tried.
He tried, but Labor has, filled the gap. The Teals have filled the gap. The Greens, Australia's changed.
And And where will it be in 5 years' time?
Yeah.
I just look at my two beautiful little baby granddaughters. I just hope they have the same freedom that we have in 20 years' time.
Well, I think you only have to look at the UK and parts of Europe and see what unmitigated immigration does to cultures. For some reason, there's a cohort of the progressive green left that seems to loathe the Western Christian value system.
Yeah.
It's been so successful. Yeah. And they would just like to, they seem to be comfortable at falling apart in front of us.
Yeah.
And so our kids and our grandkids are going to live, unless we
pull it back.
Yep, wind it back and call it out. Too many people aren't prepared to have the sort of conversation that you and I.
It's too hard. Don't want to upset you. Don't want to make you feel bad about what could be possible.
People are very sensitive in called a racist. I remember Alana McTiernan called out. I wrote an article on freeholding the Kimberley and shutting down dysfunctional Aboriginal communities, and it was racist claptrap.
Yes.
She wasn't prepared to have the
conversation. Need to have it. Because there's a lot of good Aboriginal people I know that would love to make agriculture fly, and they've got enough horsepower, enough intellect. Yep. They're not any less developed than we are.
No, they
could the same human genes as we have. They could do it, and not every. If you put everyone on Australia, if you brought a whole group of people in, some are going to excel, some are going to be not interested, some are and that's what's got to happen with the Aboriginal. I think in agriculture, if they're going to have some ownership in agricultural production, which I think they should, I think it's good for them as a whole community.
Well, we've already made decisions to buy stations and properties and hand them back, and that has not worked. We're not going to take it off them, but you just freehold it, give everyone shares, and let's see where they can take it. Some will,
some will say, "I'll buy your share."
Yeah, and away it goes.
I'll buy another share because I grew my watermelons and they went well.
That's right. And if they want to dam the Fitzroy or tributaries, then tell the Greens to get lost.
Yeah. It's not your land.
That's right. They've probably got a bigger say than anyone else. Yeah. So, but the Greens don't want to go there. So they're hypocrites themselves.
Yeah.
But it's all, these sorts of conversations need to be had in the political world. We sit on a vast amount of real estate across Australia. Agriculture is a sustainable, renewable, it's not just digging it up and shipping it out. We need to find new pathways and avenues for people to get into agriculture. Incredibly expensive to buy farmland now. Yeah. But, small plots can be highly productive, new opportunities.
I flew over the land between Esperance and the lakes as I flew over east recently, and I looked down and I saw all this bare ground because they had fires that go through there, lightning strikes, and no one puts them out. And the ground's virtually bare and exposed, and it's not fixing any carbon. It's just, and it's out of control. And virtually 10% of it, I reckon, had good vegetation on it, and 30% of it was pathetic, and probably 50% of it was bare ground.
Get in there with a blade plough.
Well, you could turn it. I remember when I was in the ag department in Esperance in the late 80s. I had 2 stints there because I went to Jeremiah and did my masters at UWA. I remember Godfrey, not Schultz, but something like that, in the ag department, soils guy, said Cascade should be shut down. The soil's so sodic, it's not good, it's not productive, you can't do anything. But of course you can. We understand soils and we can make them productive, and no-till and a bit of gypsum and good rotations and a bit of fertility. All that's now very profitable. I know this is never going to fly, but north of Ravensthorpe, all that land there could be turned into agricultural land. Very good because the rainfall's fine, the soils are just...
So there's another 250,000 acres. When the federal government passed that legislation in 1983 to end clearing, there was another 250,000 acres ready to go. I think it was that north of...
Ravensthorpe.
North to northeast. Yeah. But I wonder just how far further we could have gone and how much more we could have cleared, with the right mix of leaving the amount of vegetative.
Oh, but people say, but you need that to fix carbon. Well, it all goes up in smoke. And the other thing is when farmers are there, they protect it and they put it in the soil and they keep their stubble, and we put fertiliser on. And if you've got no fertiliser, you're not fixing carbon, but you're fixing it every year.
The solution to the carbon problem, the whole climate change religion madness, is simply to get people rich. Because you know what rich people do?
They look after stuff.
No, they stop breeding.
Oh, yeah. Yeah,
Well, they do look after stuff, but they stop. They look after themselves. No. So the whole climate change delusion is based on the fact that it's a sort of a global socialist world, and we'll all, put our shoulder to the wheel evenly. Well, that was never going to happen.
No.
And of course, it's slowly dawning on the world, and it's catching up with people.
China's building a coal-fired power station every week.
It's just insane. Everyone signed all this stuff and is not going to do it.
But Trevor, all the scientists agree. It's consensus.
Oh, of course, yes, but
as a scientist, I know many scientists that don't agree.
Oh, yeah.
Ian Plimer, David Evans.
That's right. So the reality is we're heading towards 10 billion people. We'll peak at 2080, 2070 and rapidly go down. 60 countries in the world, all as we touched on earlier, the West.
China and Japan haven't got enough young people.
That's right. Well,
we're 1.42, I think.
Yeah. Well, we would have been one of the first to go into population decline.
Yeah.
But we've topped it up with immigration.
Yeah.
All of Eastern Europe, India will go into decline by about 2050.
Yeah.
So wealthy country, wealthy people stop breeding.
Yeah.
And you want to reduce carbon emissions. Oh, get the world, incredibly rich, and that'll fix the problem, because nothing else. It's not going to be a global government that's going to limit emissions. And we all the people who pound the table, the Twiggy Forests and all the other leading hearts, they seem to all have a corporate jet and fly around the world to lecture us.
But he's got a train that's electric on the weekend.
Of course,
Did you hear about that?
Yeah.
Yeah. How's he charge that up? With coal?
Yeah, I read?
He's going to go green ammonia, and I was in Congo when he was talking to the president,
right?
And I was talking to a friend of mine who's good friends with the president of Congo,
right? And
they were talking about Twiggy being over there, and so I tried to get into his office and say, look, let's see if we do some agriculture together, because you got the money and I got the time, or had the time. But anyway, it didn't end up happening. The Inga Dam, you heard of the Inga Dam?
Yes.
Yeah, that thing got potential to just hydro, and the excess, because it goes 24/7, and at night time you don't need as much electricity, so you can keep the thing going, and you can produce ammonium,
Yep.
and you can turn that into whatever, but that never happened, but that's one way you could do green energy. But I mean, honestly, I don't know how much you know about nuclear, but I've looked into it a little bit.
Build a nuclear power station, problem solved.
Yeah, pebble bed nuclear power stations. 4th generation, 2 tennis balls, Triso fuel they call it,
right.
And it's like a tennis ball, and it's got porcelain and uranium intermixed, and when you put the two of them together, I'm friends with a guy that's WA president of the Nuclear Discussion Association, right. So he tells me he's South African, right. And they learnt this technology in South Africa, and it got sold to Germany and sold to America, and then I think the Chinese bought it off the Germans or something. Anyway, but this is amazing technology. You put 2 balls together, heats up to 800 degrees, and no more. And if you just want to drop the temperature, you just separate them, and they stop reacting with each other. You can drop it on a concrete floor from 4 metres above. Google Triso fuels, and it won't break. And even if it does, you can sleep on it. You can when it's spent. Like a tennis shoot. You hit a tennis ball, and the machine pops the ball down. It's like it pops in, and then when it's used up all its thing, it falls. It can fall to the ground effectively, and then you just pop another one in, and you don't even have to bury the thing. So this new pebble bed 4th generation nuclear power, and it's compartmental. Now, why Peter Dutton didn't go gangbusters on this, I do not know, because it slipped. The Conservatives lost a lot of ground because they didn't defend, and you can do it in stages. You can have a little one for 500,000 people, a bigger one for,
So we're signing up to build nuclear submarines.
Yeah.
Submarines. But they're all tiptoeing around, and Labor's just in the Greens are ruling it out, nuclear power stations. In the meantime, we are shutting down our manufacturing and refining sector. That's all going to China as they build more coal-fired power stations. The whole thing's mad.
Yeah.
How it ran out of control.
And they're worried about aluminium. You can't keep making aluminium. We've got lots of aluminium here and you can't because the energy is too dear. But then they hide it all in subsidies and give everyone a check, and the price is not what we're being told. It's frustrating.
Well, the end result is we'll just end up being a poor country, poorer than, go like New Zealand's got their average income is at 2/3 of ours. Yeah. We'll shut down our manufacturing. Will shut down.
The cars are gone.
Maybe we'll go back to being, Australia being built on the sheep's back.
Or we'll take boomerangs and spears.
Oh, that's right. Well, if it goes back to agriculture, it'll be good for you and me.
Yeah, well, of course you can't have tractors on electric batteries.
Oh,
that's
of course not.
Insane. At least we've done no-till, and that's reduced the amount of energy we need to grow a crop, and we're fixing a lot of carbon. I was at the crop updates again, and they were talking about, every second conversation, because GRDC takes money from the farmer, gets some from the government. It's better than anyone, but I can say it because in your company, you can fact check me, which is good for me and good for the audience, and put some money together, and then it's linked to the PERD Act. And the PERD Act means it has to have climate change in there with targets. So a lot of the research that's being done is done on Mickey Mouse stuff that really has got no production-driven stuff for agriculture, which is what drives me, production, sustainable agriculture. And it's just it's a part of the train of thinking, and we're all on this train, and you can't sort of question it. And me, I'm quite happy to be vocal and criticise, and that's how I've helped to push through with the no-till and the GM crops. Being pig-headed about stuff I'm confident about, but I don't want to upset my friends. I'm end of my life. But it really annoys me when they do the welcome to country stuff, and they sing COVID praises, and they go on about this climate change and sequestering carbon. You can't grow certain rotations because you might have more ammonia, cows and ammonia gas and methane gas, and all of this stuff drives me crazy. It drives you crazy too.
Well,
how can we turn this?
Well, one of the things we got to call out the fact that Alana McTiernan came along and allocated $15 million to regenerative agriculture, and I asked repeatedly, "What is it?" And then the big push was saying, well, if you're really interested in putting carbon in soils, well, let's do the trials. Let's set them up. The 5 years, the 10 years. You've got all your ag department old research stations like the ones you used to work on, and away we go. We'll do 100-year trials. But most of the money got spent on convincing farmers to sign up to some of these mad white shoe brigade carbon deals. And then what's come along? We got the corporates, the Woodsides and the Alcoas, the others have just worked out. They've got a problem because it's legislated. They've got to find a way to reduce their carbon footprint. Here's a simple solution. We'll just buy a whole heap of farmland, beautiful, productive, Mora farmland stuff over in the eastern states, and we'll just plant it to trees, and we'll put a 100-year covenant on it, and we'll give the local footy club a couple of grand, and we'll convince we're doing our bit. You've just wiped out a renewable sector, so you guys can solve your problem, mostly because they're not prepared to have the argument with the government. It's insane what they're doing.
Yeah, and then you get, the Somali type issue in Minnesota where, they've got these daycare clubs that don't have any kids, and they're siphoning off millions and millions of dollars. And it's just the tree industry is effectively doing the same. And I witnessed it at Morowa. A farm up the road was sold to trees, and along comes an investor and has a look at the trees, and then along comes a different investor and looks at the same trees, and both of them have got the best bit of trees, both of them have got apparently. There's all these games that get played.
Well, I raised with the head of Woodside's corporate relations, and saying, so you plant all these mallees or whatever you're planting, put a covenant on them. Well, half of them aren't going to live for 100 years. The rest, there's going to be 2 fires go through there at least in the next 100 years and wipe them all out. Have you factored that in? Just this
inconvenient truth.
You wheat belt farmers are really good at putting out fires. I'm going...
Not in the middle of a forest, we're not. Not with 2% oil in the eucalyptus.
Wow, and I would put enough, K down and P down so we can grow a whole bunch of grass underneath it.
To get it started.
Like, it'll burn real well.
And it's always been burning like that forever.
Absolutely.
Ever.
So that's... but, again, it's government set the levers, And,
But this is a global one. It's hard to fight this one.
oh, Trump's done a pretty good job. Just turn
He
the
has.
tap off. It's just,
But people don't like Trump. I wonder why that would be.
you wonder, though, if America will be prepared to go back down this pathway. He's got another 3 years to go.
Yeah.
And that's a long time.
Yeah.
And
But at the crop updates, here's all my peers again. If you say something positive about Trump,
the whaling,
big chunk of them have got been indoctrinated by the mainstream media, which are really, they're not interested. They're being pulled by other levers, aren't they?
it worries me that we've developed an education system that, I don't know, most of the contemporaries have been through university. They can't seem to think for themselves. And worse, they're prepared to follow the line, the group think, because they don't want to stand out.
How long does that last for?
Long time. You've
5
seen
years?
that? Oh, no. Well,
Oh, it washed off me in about 5, I reckon. Playing footy with my local farmer mates, back in Jerramunga. A lot of that gets knocked off you.
I get a dose of confidence by looking at my two boys, 22 and 19.
Well, there is a pushback, and Charlie Kirk captured
Yeah.
that.
They seem to be able to think for themselves.
Yeah.
As I mentioned earlier, the daughter, she's right into this, but she still seems to like her materialistic, shopping online, cheap stuff, holidays overseas, mobile phones, the big cars.
Yeah.
So each generation changes. Maybe they'll wake up. Maybe they won't. But Australia needs to wake up. The world needs to wake up.
Yeah.
The Europeans need to wake up.
Well, did you see Rubio's talk on the weekend with Munich Security Council?
Yes, yeah, I heard. I saw grabs of it.
28 minutes of gold.
Yeah.
Every one of those words I thought was treasure. And he was almost crying at some point because he was saying, look, we know we need to be your friend. We need to be your partner because in the future, there's things are going to get ugly and we need to be on the same side. And can we please do that?
Yeah.
We don't want to cut you off, but we just know this transgender stuff was not very healthy. The woke stuff, getting all your oil from Russia, it's just not very sensible.
The open door immigration
is not sensible.
The climate change, extremism.
Getting rid of your cheap energy. And so he was virtually appealing to the crowd, and he got a standing ovation.
Yeah, he was always very sensible before he came in as Secretary of State, and he'll probably run at some stage down the track.
I reckon I like J.D. Vance a lot, and so did Charlie, so therefore, but I would actually, Rubio's got the passion.
I did like Vance, a great book.
Yeah.
The movie's okay.
I've watched the movie.
I think he embarrassed himself. And it's a difficult position, being Vice President.
Yeah.
Because you can't be you're the spare as such.
Yeah.
And you're not really there to take much of a lead.
Okay.
But
so
he's a little bit
that's why
sycophantic under Trump, which he sort of needs to be to play his role.
Okay.
But
So you
is he as globalist as Rubio? I don't know.
Yeah, I like Rubio. I really like him. But if JD was in Rubio's position, maybe he would show more flair there.
Yeah.
But anyway, I think they're 1 and 2 in my mind, and I think they're going to sort the elections out, and they'll be free and fair because I hope so.
Yeah,
I think so.
America has a great ability to reset itself. So
Yeah. Well, the Venezuela stuff, that's where they were.
Yeah,
the Smartmatic. That's where the cheating of the voting system was happening, and China and Russia are right in there with them, and so's Iran. And Venezuela was just a stinking smelly, and that got taken out. My son told me, he's a policeman. He said, Dad, they used weaponry that just make people fall to their knees.
Right.
They couldn't shoot them.
Right.
And they also had all the electromagnetic pulse, I think, that took out all the Chinese and all the Russian machinery.
Telecommunications and radars and stuff.
Yeah, so they went out there with one pilot getting shot twice in the leg, and that was it. And they shot 300 of the opposition, and they extracted him.
Yeah, the biggest mistake, they should have kept going and taken out the whole leadership.
Well, that's been done before in the Middle East, and it hasn't worked out really well.
Well, I think Trump might jump a bit far if he has a crack at the Iranians. And I hope any farmers listening who haven't bought their fuel and their fertiliser and had it on farm,
get it before it
well,
happens.
because if they shut the Straits of Hormuz, which they easily could, a whole bunch of, I think Iranians got 5,000 missiles aimed at Saudi, UAE, Kuwait, and
it could get pretty messy.
well, you'd soon shut down the world. They got nothing. The mullahs have got nothing to lose and nowhere to go. They're mad.
Well, they could go to Russia.
Well, no one else would want them to.
I'm sure Trump would give them an out and he'd negotiate one with Putin. Probably. But anyway, that's a little bit bigger than agriculture, but it certainly does, like you say, it does have impacts on agriculture.
It has geopolitical impacts that has an impact on commodity prices or the availability of chemicals that we need. We run in a just-in-time system.
Yeah.
So as we found in COVID, someone pushes the button somewhere, in a lab in Wuhan, and it has implications.
And Scott Morrison says, well, where did that come from? We need an investigation. All of a sudden, our barley and our wine and our beef and what was it, lobster?
Everyone got touched up.
But sure, it affected the price in Australia, but the markets are all mobile around the world, and if this one is cut off from there, they have to get it from somewhere else. So where they were supplying to, we can then go to there. So it's not quite as dramatic as what some people, I think, made it out to be. But certainly, you're a good person to talk to, Trevor, from a geopolitical, agro-global, agricultural perspective, and maybe I just wonder what sort of concluding comments you'd like to make as to where you think, you sort of have said where we think we might be going, but it's, maybe give us some thoughts on
where we're heading. I'll give you a couple of takeaways. It's all numbers, but the farm aggregation that we've been seeing, it's going to speed up. So when you and I were kids, you're a few years older than me, but I think in 1969 we peaked out in wheat belt broadacre farms, probably 16, depends how you calculate them. We're realistically, 2,000 growing properties, 700 of them producing 70% of the grain. The aggregation's been sitting about 3% a year, which means you double farm sizes every 25 years. The big kicker locally is the fact that you can't just give it all to, pick the number one son and he inherits it and buy a couple of houses for the other kids. The price of land's tripled in the last 10 years. And so average farm, $20, $30 million, very hard to divvy that up. So farms are going to get bigger, and there's going to be less farmers. Machinery will get bigger, more sophisticated. Commodity prices, I think we're in for a long downward run. It's hard to get ag technicians. We've got Thomas's girlfriend is being ag mechanic at AFGRI in Narrogin, and they're expensive as they are now. They're going to be harder to get to. Second-hand machinery is going to be more complicated. So the whole size of agriculture is the days of the small family farming property are disappearing. The aggregation that will go on in places like Africa, in India, in Russia, mean bigger farms. Bigger farms are more productive, they're more efficient, so produce more grain.
Not necessarily. The superannuation farms don't really, well, I guess if they've got incentives for the manager, if he performs really well, he gets a good bonus.
Some of them are pretty good. Some of them are pretty good. My argument is that once mostly they'll still stay family farms, they won't just go corporate. Yeah. Once you learn how to manage the third header, the fourth one's easy.
Yeah.
The fifth one. And there's 5 family farms in the world that crop 1 million acres. A couple in Russia, one in Ukraine, a couple in South America. So, and they tend to stay in families. The corporates come in and come out.
Yeah.
The corporatisation is not going to disappear. The aggregation is not going to disappear. The population decline is going to speed up. Our ability to grow more grain with GM and new technology, that productivity growth at 1% a year, the downward pressure on wheat prices, commodity prices will continue, and the stupidity of governments making it difficult to produce, fertilisers and ag chemicals.
Well, and be restrictive on it.
That's right. Well,
with paraquat being in the spotlight.
You take paraquat or glyphosate out, the stupidity of government will continue. So, suppose they're my takeaways, which aren't very positive.
Not overly positive.
But the other side of it is agriculture is incredibly interesting, and it's just going to get more interesting.
Well, good on you, Trevor. This has been the very different interview that I've had with a lot of the other agronomic-based stuff, but I thought it was time to mix it up a little bit, and you're the perfect person to do that because of your exposure to politics, exposure to the Indigenous issues up north, your farming background, your global travels. We could talk more about that, I'm sure, and we will over a beer occasionally. So, but for now, Trevor Whittington, thank you very much for your time.
Well, and Bill, the last comment comes from me, which is you've had enormous impact on agriculture in the state. You've taken your skills overseas, and you are a commentator, highly respected, and I think you've got a lot more to contribute, state and globally, and I look forward to watching it.
Thanks, Trevor.
Thanks, Bill.